All right, ladies and gentlemen, yeah, we're gonna start now. So sit down, sit down, sit down. Salapans, right? Let's first of all thank God for everything, for His wisdom, for keeping us alive to be here this morning. We give Him gratitude and we humbly ask Him to give us His wisdom to guide us throughout, right? Okay, guys, remember where we stopped last year because I felt there are certain things that you need to cover, right? That we haven't really done. Sit down. So we've done how to do a markup, right? We've done it. Gross profit divided by say times 100%, right? So what do we really mean by markup, right? How do you calculate it? You know how to calculate gross profit. Hello, hello, you must listen. Focus, man, focus. You know how to calculate gross profit? When you take the sales minus cost of sales, will give you a gross profit. For example, the selling price minus the cost price. So whatever that is left is the gross profit. Now, if you want to calculate the percentage, you say the gross profit divided by sales times 100. Then it will give you the markup. We call it a markup. In other words, you call it a gross profit percentage. Understand it? Right? You can either call it gross profit percentage or the markup. Right? Yeah. And even if you are not writing, there's not a problem. I'm recording it for you. Right? It's gonna be on air on YouTube. Right? It's people like you that haven't subscribed because you don't even know whether we got you subscribe. Okay. All right, guys, do you understand it? Hello, focus. Do you understand how to calculate a markup? Right. So they say, but calculating the markup, right, percentage uses the formula this, right? Okay. This one is gross profit, I mean. Sorry. The first one we calculate is the gross profit, right? Now, if you want to calculate the markup, instead of saying over the sales, then you say over the cost of sale. So let me make it crystal clear now, right? And remove that element of ambiguity. You know what I mean by ambiguity? Something that is not clear. Listen, Yoga, look at me. There are two concepts here we are talking about. Two important concepts. One is gross profit percentage, right? It's different from markup, right? Gross profit percentage and markup, right? So how do you calculate the gross profit percentage? Listen to me carefully. Hello, focus. Don't look somewhere. Look at me, right? Okay. Gross profit percentage, right? You say the gross profit, right? Divided by 6 times 100. How do you get the gross profit, right? Gross profit, you remove the sales minus the cost of sales, right? For example, if I'm selling this device, right? Look at me, look at me. If I'm selling this device, I'm gonna put a ridiculous price now so that you can be able to calculate it appropriately. Focus, my dear. No, my dear. Hello, listen, listen. If you are not ready to learn, you can go out. Don't worry. Don't disturb others. They are ready to learn. Please, man. No. As a brief. No, don't worry. When it is time for you, you feel it's convenient for you, there you come in, right? No problem. Okay. So when we say gross profit percentage, Jonga, you say gross profit divided by sales, right? Times 100, right? Okay, how do you get the gross profit, right? For example, if I'm selling one item, right, you can work it out by making use of your sales minus cost of sales. What do we mean by sales and cost of sales? Right. Okay, let me give you a typical example. For example, I'm selling this item, right? So this item, perhaps I bought it 100 rand, right? 100 rand. So if I bought it, if I purchase this 100 rand, obviously I'm not going to sell it 100 rand if I want to make profit, right? So perhaps I will decide to sell it at 150, 150 rand. Right. Now the sales is 150. Right. The cost of sales, the cost price is 100. So how will you be able to calculate the gross profit? You say 150 minus 100, right? Which is 50 rand as the gross profit. Then divide by this sales, which is divided by 150 times 100. So when you work it out, it will give you the gross profit percentage that I'm making in selling this product. Does it make sense to you? Hello, did you get it right? Who is confused? Any confusion? Are you confused? Where are you confused? Everything. Okay. All right. Look at, I'm going to explain again. I'm going to repeat myself. Right. For example, right? I'm a dealer. I'm a seller. I'm in business to make money. I'm an entrepreneur. Right? I'm buying certain items to sell to people to make profit. Right. Okay. Let's say I'm selling this item, Jonga. Right? This item, I'm not manufacturing it myself. I bought it somewhere. Right? Perhaps I paid 100 rand to get this stuff. That is the cost to me, right? Which could as well be regarded as cost of sales, right? Now, if I'm to sell these items, obviously I need to make money to survive, right? I'm not going to sell this thing to you at 100. I need to make a profit, perhaps let's say 150. I'm selling it 150. Now you got two things there, two prices, right? Two amounts. Let me put it that way, not prices, two amounts. One is the cost price, right? The other one is the selling price. Okay, what is the cost price? 100, right? What was selling price? 150. Okay, now I want to calculate my gross profit percentage. So for me to be able to establish that, I will say 150, which is the sales, minus the cost of sales, which could be the cost price, as the case may be, right? Divide by the sales amount, which is 150, then times 100. Then when you work it out, you will see perhaps it's 30%. I'm not 50. Okay, 50 over 150 times 100. That is about, yeah, 30, 50 times this is, it's about 33 point something percent if you work it out. So that will be my gross profit percentage. Does it make sense to you? Right. Now, the other concept I said is how to calculate the markup percentage. For example, if I want to establish, if I say I bought a product 100 rand, right? And I want to make a markup of or add a markup. You know, when we say markup, you are adding something to your cost price for you to be able to arrive at your selling price. Does it make sense to you? That is what we call markup, right? You put something on top of your cost price, right? So if you said you want to make a markup of a certain percentage, right? You can use that percentage to work it, but there is a way to work it. If you have your gross profit, right? You have the cost of sale. So based on this business now, right? You see 4 rand, 6 rand is the cost of sales, which is the cost price. 10 rand is the selling price, right? To get the gross profit, they say 10 rand minus 6 rand. That was why They've got 4 round here. Does it make sense to you? Now, if you want to calculate the cost, the markup, not cost of sales now, instead of saying gross profit over cost of over the selling price or over the sales, then you use the cost of sales. Here we are using sales, right? For markup, you don't use sales, you use cost of sales. That is the little difference. You say gross profit divided by cost of sales, not gross profit divided by sales. Gross profit divided by sales is the gross profit percentage. If you want to calculate the markup, gross profit over cost of sales. You see now, this is the new change we've introduced. Rather than using sales, then you use cost of sales. Does it make sense to you? Right. Okay. Now, costing principle of various type of business. How do you cost arrive at the cost price, or rather the amount that you intend to charge for your product or services? You need to build it up, right? For example, you got different types of businesses, right? You got trading. For example, trading, like I explained, trading is easy. You buy, you sell, right? You buy, for example, you've gone to Macro or wherever perhaps you buy your stuff from, then you just put your something on top of it, then you sell it. Right? That one is easy to calculate. Then you have manufacturing. Here, there are a lot of things you need to consider. Right? You as a layman, right? We know what I mean by layman, somebody that doesn't know much. You can calculate the cost of your product, right? You can be able to work at your selling price because it's easy. You don't need to be much analytical for you to be able to calculate that. You know how much you bought it, right? You know you pay for your transport, you pay for your rent and all those stuff. You just add a certain amount on top of it to cover your expenses and your profit. Then you say, okay, I bought this thing 10 rand. I'm not gonna sell it 10 rand. I'm gonna sell it perhaps 8 rand so that I can cover my cost. You don't need much knowledge to be able to calculate that, right? Okay. Manufacturing is not easy. The people that are doing this, right? We got professionals that calculate this, most especially like you see big businesses, right? They've got what we call cost and management accountants that helping them to calculate this, right? Then when you are rendering services, services is easy as well, right? For example, you got head dressing salon. You know how much you pay for your rent, right? You just work out your expenses, then you put a certain amount, right? Then you know this is what I'm going to charge somebody that is coming to do here. So, right. Okay, now let's zoom in. In terms of trading, units sold per month less the cost of sales. So what we are trying to say is what made up the cost for somebody that is trading, for example, buying stock to resell. For the cost of the stock is part of the expenses, is part of the cost of sales, right? Because when you go and buy from Macro, you are going to pay for those goods, right? The amount you are going to pay fall under the stock, the amount to buy the stock. Then transport, if you are the one, if you, of course, you are going to take transport to go there and buy your stuff. It's part of your expense. Then you need to add to the cost for you to be able to build up your selling price. Then sales commission and all those stuff. Right. For manufacturing, you need to work out the cost of raw materials. You know, raw materials. For example, if you are making bread, right? Bread. The raw materials for that, you can talk about flour, you can talk about yeast, you can talk about salt, you can talk about water, whatever you go to use to manufacture, right? Then the cost of that needs to be factored in here. Then direct labor. people that are going to work, transform the raw material into finished product. Right? For example, if you got a bakery, people are going to work there, right? People are going to take the flour, maneuver it, whatever they want to do with it. Then at the end of the day, come up with a finished product, which perhaps could be bread or cake or whatever. You are going to pay those people. Even if it's you yourself that is doing it, the time, the effort that you are going to put in to transform the flowers and the raw material to make the cake needs to be paid for. Right. So that could fall under the direct labor. Does it make sense to you? Then you have perhaps the electricity that you're going to use. So what we are trying to say is all the expenses that are going to be involved for you to transform the raw materials into a finished product needs to be calculated. No expense should be exempted or should be omitted. Otherwise, you're going to run into problem. Because in formulating your price, calculating your price, if you omit something, you're going to shoot yourself on the foot. So you must make sure that all items are well taken care of. That is why here you need a professional. Here we call them cost and management accountants. These are accountants, learned people that are doing this thing. You can, if you have a big business, you can't do it yourself. You employ a professional accountant, right? Cost and management accounting, you can learn it at CPUT. You can go to university. People got degrees in cost and management accounting that are doing this, right? It's a professional work. Then for service, it's easy, right? That one is mostly based on hours to start with, right? Man hour, the effort that you are going to put in, right? For example, if I'm a hairdresser, right? You come to me to dress your hair. I calculate how long is gonna take me for me to be able to make your hair, and how much I'm supposed to be paid per hour. I can start calculating my cost based on that. Do you understand what I mean? I told you one certain time, there was a time I went to cut my hair, right? I don't know how the guy did. Just 15 minutes, he said it's finished. I look at it, I say, for these 15 minutes, you want to charge me this amount? I said, no, you are not done yet. Make my hair nice. Did you see? Because I look at it, how could this guy charge me such a huge amount for just 15 minutes? I don't earn such an amount in 15 minutes. So that one is based on the service hour and other expenses that are going to be used, other materials that are going to be used. So, guys, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to stop here today. Then tomorrow we're gonna talk to this slide, then discuss about the procedure for compiling the cost prices. Right? Okay, that's it.